Welcome to the Fathering Project webinar. Tonight we are excited to be part of the launch week for Beacon, the new cyber safety app designed to help parents navigate cybersecurity, adopt new strategies and work in partnership with their children to keep them safe. Joining us tonight is one of the launch team, Bec Nguyen, from Telethon Kids in Perth, who's had a very busy week with media, TV, sharing the functionality of the tools with parents, carers and schools. So thank you, Bec, for being here tonight. We're so looking forward to hearing about this amazing new app for parents and also being able to direct those listening tonight to where you can find the Beacon app for free at the end of this webinar. So first we might just move on to some housekeeping notes. If you could change the slide, that'd be great. Thanks for that, Bec. So tonight, everybody's on mute, but you will be able to ask questions by using the chat pane in your control panel that you have there on your screen. So if you have a question for us, we'll be taking questions towards the end of the discussion tonight. So please put your questions in, but otherwise everyone will be muted. So next slide, I'll start to introduce Bec. So our guest speaker tonight, Bec Nguyen, is part of the Health Promotion and Education Research team at Telethon Kids Institute, overseeing all the digital health projects, including the Beacon app project. The Beacon app is an initiative by Telethon Kids Institute and Bankwest, and at the Fathering Project, we are proud to have also supported this through some of our dads groups. So Beacon is a cyber safety app providing parents and carers with knowledge and skills, delivering the most trusted, up-to-date information backed by behavioural science research, as well as personalised support, ideas, strategies at their fingertips to navigate and help their children thrive in this ever-changing world. So definitely much needed. This presentation will cover the Beacon project's background, introduction to Beacon features, how the Fathering Project community members contributed to this initiative, and we'll have also Q&A. So I'd like to hand it over to Bec. Welcome, and please get us started.
Thank you so much, Anne. I'm really excited to be able to launch the Beacon app to Australia this year. As Anne mentioned, I'm the project manager of this project, and I actually have an amazing team behind all the work that you can see in the Beacon app. And so I just wanted to take this time to also acknowledge my project team members. We have Kate Urseg, Dr. Helen Monks, Karen Ford, and Professor Donna Cross, who is the director of the Beacon project. So wherever you are in Australia, I would like to start with an acknowledgement of country. We just wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, wherever we are this evening. We wish to acknowledge and pay our respects to the elders, past, present, emerging, and their continuing culture and contribution they make to the life of the cities that we're in and the regions of this country. So the Telethon Kids cyber safety research, from this work, we know that parents and carers actually play a critical role in helping to develop the digital skills of their children and encouraging them to use technology in a positive and safe way. It's crucial that parents and carers are supported to build their own capabilities to help them navigate the ever-changing technology landscape to help teach and guide their children. So for the first time, we're actually witnessing a generation of children with ready access to technology since birth. And really, there is no memory of life before the internet. And so with this it actually creates opportunities as well as challenges that we found. So the online opportunities that we found include things such as their academic achievement. We know that opportunities for learning and creativity and positive correlation between early internet exposure and later higher achievement at school. We know that opportunities bring digital skills and citizenship to our young children by entering school, already able to navigate and retrieve and create digital content online. We're seeing an opportunity in social interactions where the internet has provided young kids with a place where they can really negotiate their identity. They learn all sorts of new social skills, they make a lot of new friends, they're able to share their experiences and also look at comparing themselves with others as well. The internet has provided broader connections, so for the first time we're able to make connections with people all around Australia and including for our young kids to make these connections as well. So both globally, but also for those who might be in remote and regional areas that are able to, for the first time, be able to connect with other people. So the online challenges that we found in relation to being connected online includes a number of different challenges, including the content risks that they experience. So being exposed to potentially harmful or incorrect information that they find either on the internet or through apps or through games. We know that there's challenges with trying to limit the contact risks that they have. So potentially harmful interactive behaviours such as cyberbullying and looking at the impact on their mental health. Privacy risks, so their data and online risks that are now being shared that normally isn't with being online. We have their conduct risks, so online actions that put our children and young people at risk, such as downloading illegal content. And we see challenges in lifestyle risks, such as the physical health risk associated with being still for a bit too long while sitting on games or on the internet, and looking at the impact of screen-based media use. So the research that we found here at Telethon Kids, we recently did a study just last year in 2019, and we've pulled some stats forward that we'd like to share with you. So we found that over 85% of parents reported either a moderate or a major concern about their children's digital technology use. We found that under 40% of parents reported feeling only fairly confident to support their child's safe technology use. We know that many of the parents expressed worry about their own level of knowledge and their ability to influence their own children's behaviour in the online environment. And not surprisingly, some were actually overwhelmed with the amount of information about cyber safety that was out there. Another concern that we also found was what we call the growing digital divide. So it's really the gap between parents and children and trying to keep up with technology themselves, as well as having to try and keep up with the technology that their children are exposed to online. We also saw that over half of all parents of teenagers actually didn't limit their child's screen time or place any sorts of restrictions on the type of content and materials that they accessed online. So with all the research that we've done at Telethon Kids Institute, we were very lucky enough to speak with Bankwest, and we actually received a 3-year funded funding for the project between Bankwest to develop the Beacon app. And the aim of this was to be nationally available for free on all smartphones and tablets, and we launched just on Monday of this week. This project combines Bankwest's reputation for cybersecurity and supporting the local community, as well as Telethon Kids' world-leading child health research position in cyber safety. The research has been at least 14 years of research that we've have done that's informed the work that we'll introduce you in the Beacon project. And just on the side there, I'd like to introduce you to our little mascot. His name is Beaky. And you'll see Beaky throughout the Beacon app to sort of show you the way around how to use that. So one of the first things we did with the Beacon project is the importance of community involvement. We needed to hear the voice of a lot of people around Australia to make sure that the needs and issues and barriers are informed, and that Beacon is there to help our Australian families. So the first thing we did was we created a parent and carer online Facebook reference group. This started pretty soon after the project started about a year ago, and we're currently at roughly around 180 parents and carers in this group, and they have been along every step of the way with the Beacon project, letting us know everything from how the app should look, the name of the app, and of course they helped us test the app when we had a pilot version ready to go. We had enormous help from, of course, the Fathering project, and I'll go into a little bit more details about the involvement there. We know it was really important to include the voice of grandparents. As we know, our grandparents and carers are looking after our young children, and so in collaboration with the town of Cambridge and City of Wanneroo here in Perth, we also had a seniors reference group as well. And lastly, we also thought it was great to include the youth voice as well. And so we looked at speaking with City of Coburn here in Perth, their Youth Advisory Council. And really at that session, we were initially just asking them, you know, are we answering the right questions that you feel mum and dad need to know? But in speaking with them, we actually found that they found Beacon really helpful, especially in the support services area. And so we're really looking at Beacon as a dual generational app across grandparents, parents, and young people. We also had a few more reference groups to help us along the way. So when building an app, we required the voice of people who really spoke the technical language and helped us along the way. So we had a technology experts reference group, and that included some academic staff from Curtin University, some IT staff from both of the organisations here at Telethon Kids Institute and Bankwest, and a few IT specialists that helped us with analytics and cybersecurity. And lastly, we also had a cyber experts and educators advisory group, and these are really our on-the-ground experts around Australia. And you may be familiar with these organisations. We have the eSafety Commissioner of Australia, Think You Know, YSafe, WA Child Safety Services, Surf Online Safe, and Project Rocket. And these guys are really, you know, they're our on-the-ground experts. We meet up with them every month, and they really let us know from all the hundreds of thousands of community members, whether it's through schools or online webinars or parent workshops. They've really given us invaluable insights around what are the things that we really need to address in the Beacon app. So the next thing we wanted to do is think about, you know, of all the information out there in the cyber world, how could we possibly put this into an app, and really just not reinventing the wheel. So there are some amazing partnerships that we've made on this project with those experts who have done a lot of that groundwork in providing all the content that you actually see in Beacon. So we have the eSafety Commissioner and Common Sense Media from America, plus a few of the cyber educators groups that I mentioned earlier. And from this, we've also connected with many dissemination partners, especially here in Western Australia, but around Australia. And this includes our local governments, which I mentioned before. We also are working together with the Department of Education, so looking at disseminating Beacon throughout schools, also through the community, through our school P's and C's, and through education, Catholic education and State Library of WA as well. So as I mentioned before, the Fathering Project gave us invaluable insights and a partnership in this space while we developed Beacon as well. So the first thing we thought, the great synergy with the Fathering Project is really having the voice of those dads. That was so important as well. We know with a lot of the consultations, we found that a lot of mums sometimes left all the technology stuff to dads. And so we thought it was just a really great way to be able to partner with the Fathering Project to really get that voice really evident throughout the Beacon project. So one of the first things that we did with the Fathering Project was to ask them to help us test the Beacon app. So a couple of months ago, we would have had our very first version of Beacon available, what we call our beta or our pilot version. And we invited dads from the Fathering Project to come along and test the app. And we had a number of dads download the app and test it for 2 weeks and provide us with some anonymous feedback. We also had dads who sat one-on-one testing with me and the project team, and were able to sort of really observe how they were using Beacon and the different functionalities from that. And from all of the feedback that we received from all the community members as well as the Fathering Project, it really informs some of the key features that you see in the Beacon app today. We've also had a member of the Fathering Project, and so I'd like to just give a shout out to Rory Murray from here in WA, who has been exceptional and really just our star, you know, our really star player on the Beacon project, who's helped us to really give a great dad's perspective and has conducted a number of interviews on Channel 7 and specifically here when we launched Beacon this week. The team was invited to speak on a cyber safety panel on Flashpoint, which was a TV program here in Western Australia. We also had a national spot on Sunrise this week on Tuesday, as well as the Channel 7 nightly news as well. We're also really happy to announce that we are working together with the Fathering Project to hold our very first interactive digital workshop for fathers in Perth around mid-October. And this will be a really great way. We're calling it a Switched On Dads workshop, where dads will be able to come in, talk about, some issues, and we're able to provide some tips and strategies and advice, and using the Beacon app to help solve some of those problems. So if you look out, if you're in Perth, please keep a lookout for invites over email. They might have come out already. If not, then over the weekend you might see them, and we'd love for you to register. Spots are definitely limited, so make sure to register if you're interested in coming along. So this is actually Rory, our star player, as I mentioned, and we had developed this video that has been shown internally across Bankwest, as well as Telethon Kids Institute, and you may have seen snippets of Rory and his family across TV. So I'm going to play this, and hopefully it plays okay.
I've got two kids, Emily, who's 13, and Lucas, who's 11. Emily mainly just uses a MacBook for school. My son Lucas, on the other hand, he loves using any device he can get his hands on.
On my Xbox, I probably do like 2 hours to 3 hours a day, and on the weekends probably 3 to 4. On my phone, I probably go on it once a day maximum.
As kids are growing older, they're using new apps all the time. They hear about different apps as they grow older from their friends, or new apps that have been released. And as a parent, you just can't keep up with that. So by having an app like Beacon, you can just have a quick browse on the app and go and do some research, and then you can keep up to date really easily with what they're doing and what's involved. What I really like about it is just the general broad range of topics that are available. A lot of it is not so much about looking for an answer to a question, but having all that information at your fingertips. One of the features I like about it is the family agreement. So that allows us to periodically go and have these conversations with each child and go through a number of different elements around cyber safety. So that reminds us of all the different categories of information that we need to talk about and the different issues we need to talk about to make sure they're all covered, to actually have the conversation from an informed perspective. I think my kids were more appreciative that, well, Dad's actually taking the time to understand what we're doing and he cares about us.
So I just wanted to give thanks to Rory and his kids for the time that they put in putting together that video. And so now I just wanted to have we'll get into Beacon now, and the first thing that I'd like to talk to you about really is our Beacon Digital Citizenship Framework. This is really just a structure that's been put together by our project team member, Dr. Helen Monks, and the rest of the project team in really thinking about, of all those topics that's out there around cyber safety, how do we get this into a version that parents and carers can actually easily digest and understand, and give them a bit of structure around the different topics and what you can actually see from Beacon. And so this is what we're using here. And if you've got Beacon already downloaded, you might be familiar with some of these categories and topics. But if you go into the browse section of the Beacon app, you'll be able to see these categories, and you're able to filter down further into each of those topics to learn more about them. So I'd like to introduce you to Beacon here. Hopefully everyone who's listening has downloaded it by now. I mentioned it's free to download on both App Store and Google Play. Just need to search for Beacon Cyber Safety app and you should be able to find it okay. This is the 4 different function areas that you'll see from Beacon. I'll just give you a very brief snapshot as I'll actually go through each of these sections with you. And so we'll start off by looking into the For You page. So the first thing I just wanted to show you here as well is you'll be shown a number of different articles as soon as you come into the app. These to start off with are sort of randomized articles, but they can actually be tailored. And one of the really unique features of Beacon is that we tailor the articles that we pull forward to show you every time you open up Beacon. We also have what you can see at the top of the screen there, Ask Beacon a Question. We have built Beacon in a way where we have machine learning in there, where, from the consultations and research we've done, we know that often parents don't know what they don't know. So it's really hard to search for that. So we've created Beacon in a way where you can actually just simply ask, you know, what social media apps are safe for my child, or what gaming apps are safe for my child, and Beacon will do the job and pull those results forward for you. I mentioned there with the our picks for you here, really providing tailored articles, and this will really bring forward articles on based on your child's age, the types of devices that you have in your home, and the topics of interest. So I'll go through a section on how you can actually input that information into your app. And lastly, the really unique feature that we have with Beacon is we have live push notifications where we're able to alert all of our users to any trending topics or any hot topics or things like that we feel that you should know. So these notifications will come weekly, but for those users who might have had access to Beacon, last week we had sent out a push notification around the TikTok issue that I think most parents would have heard about now. There was a TikTok issue that was alerted last week, and our team were able to get together, write up an article that suggested different strategies and support around TikTok, and especially if your child had been exposed to what was on TikTok, and we were able to push that alert out before the news on that day. So it's just a really amazing sort of notification system that we've built in, where we hope to keep parents up to date with all of these sorts of news and topics. The next section here is browse. So that's the second one along the bottom there of the menu. And those, the digital citizenship framework slide that I would have showed you earlier is where you can see these categories listed in the browse section. We've now hit just over 600 articles, including 200 videos covering all of those different topics. This is a very, very dynamic library, so this will always be growing, and we are, in that respect, we're able to keep up to date with all the latest trends and include those articles when they actually come out. We have something we thought would be a great idea as hot topics. So this is really things that are trending, and this is based on our consultations with parents and carers, as well as our consultations with our cyber educators experts group. So when they tell us that there's something that's trending and we need to stay on top of it, the Beacon team will actually mark these new topics in the hot topics. So be sure to come back to this area to keep checking what are the latest hot topics that you can look at. While we were testing this during COVID and isolation, we knew that lots of children were now online for longer, and Zoom, and there was a new app called House Party. So we had pushed that forward in the hot topics to really give parents some information about that online-offline balance and things that they should know about House Party and how to set those parental controls. And lastly, in this section, we've also created a spot where you can actually save those articles. So if you're on the way to work, or just at some point where you don't actually have the time to read those articles, or that it's step-by-step instructions where you might want to set some parental controls, just save the article and you can always access them at this section of the app. Our third section along, which is our family area, I mentioned before, we can actually pull forward those tailored articles for you, and here we can actually set in your family details. So I mentioned you just enter your child's name or nickname, you set their age, the devices in the home, and the topics of interest, and every time you open up Beacon on that main page for you, there will be tailored articles. Here we actually also have a unique Australian first feature where we've actually developed a personalised tailored family agreement that you can sit down with your family and go through different sets of, it's basically a contract where you sit with your family and you're able to set different things such as time limits, safety, devices, how they're being used, where they're being stored, how your children behave while they're in games and apps, looking at social networking and behaviours around, making sure that they tell a responsible adult if they see anything that they're worried about. And we've also created space where you can actually make your own. So when we actually tested this area with a few families, we found that a few kids actually wanted to set their own because they actually wanted mum and dad to have those agreements, to be part of the agreement as well, which was a great reason why we added that. At the end of it, you can actually sign it, so both your child and parent signs it, and then it actually creates it as a PDF where you can actually print it off and stick it up in your fridge, and you can always refer to it if you know, if it's broken, and of course talk about the consequences of if it's broken as well. In this section, we thought it was really important to also have a section to speak about having the right conversations. So really knowing when to have the conversations and how to have the conversations, so you're prepared at any given time, whether it's before it happens, during or after it happens. And then finally, a spot where you can really understand about setting those parental controls as well. So Beacon's large library covers all sorts of parental controls, from computers to devices to even smart TVs, and of course all the way down to specific apps that you can set parental controls for. And lastly, we have a section called support, and this was largely informed by parents and some of our cyber educators, where, you know, sometimes we have unfortunately parents that come to us really in this crisis mode where something's happened with their child, and they really just need somewhere to go to report it, and to also have the support services as well. So in Beacon, in the support section, we have step-by-step instructions for reporting each of the steps for either cyberbullying incidences, grooming or image-based abuse, or reporting illegal and inappropriate content. So aside from the eSafety Commissioner, we've also provided links to actually report to the Australian Federal Police as well, and also step-by-step guide into, as to how you actually report that. And then also the support services that we've provided in case you need you know, extra counselling for either yourself or your children. And then lastly, a spot where you can actually contact the Beacon team. So I'd just like to finish by showing you what we're calling our what and why video that we actually generated for the launch of Beacon. And here we go.
The online world is home to some pretty amazing things, but it grows and changes quickly. So it's easy to feel left in the dark with what your kids are up to. That's why we created Beacon, a cyber safety educational app designed to keep you up to date so you can keep your kids safe online. Vicky here will serve you up current content that's been tailored to your family's needs and give you access to heaps of articles and videos put together by the experts in cyber safety, or find the answers to the things you've always wanted to know. To set some boundaries, create a custom online family agreement for things like screen time, device-free zones, and gaming. Don't feel left in the dark. Download Beacon today, the switched-on app for families online.
So I just wanted to thank the Fathering Project and everyone for their time listening. We would really love for you, if you haven't already, to please download Beacon. It's now actually being shared through the Telethon Kids website, on our Facebook and our socials. So this is something that we would really love for you to get behind, and to please help share it through all of your networks. If you would like to contact me for any other information, please do. I've provided my contact details there. I think we now may have some questions coming through.
We do have questions. We do have questions coming through. Thanks so much, Bec. So the first one I've got here is from Joan in New South Wales. Joan's pretty keen to know the one piece of advice you would give to parents about cyber safety and their kids.
Thank you. Thank you, Joan. I get this question all the time, and it's not one piece of I guess it's not one piece of tip. It's that we usually recommend, and I did just go through this in the slide, but to reiterate, I think it's really important to keep that communication open, having those communications really early with your children as well. Know how to have the conversations and when to have the conversations. In our family section of the Beacon app, we have prompts for this and conversation starters. So that's a really key point that I like to put across. Second would be to create that digital family agreement, that contract that you have with your children that really sets out how they use their devices and how they conduct themselves online. Also speaking about, the consequences of the family agreement if it's broken. And then also lastly is to set those parental controls. So I mentioned before with Beacon, you're able to search either the device that you have or the app that you have or the gaming console, plus the word parental controls, and Beacon will pull up the step-by-step instructions to actually set those. So just to say again, it's really to start the conversation nice and early, create the family agreement, and also set those parental controls.
That's great advice, Bec, and very relevant, and I think will be taken up by a lot of our listeners. I do have another question here from Brendan. He's wondering, and I guess it's kind of linked perhaps to what you were mentioning earlier about the TikTok video and things that have been happening recently. What do I do if I find something my child has seen online that I think is inappropriate? Could you give me some advice on how to manage this situation? His kids are 9 to 13 years old.
Okay, so right in the thick of it, really, with all the social media, well, at least beginning to anyway, if they haven't already. So I think this was, yeah, absolutely very relevant last week with the TikTok issue here. And again, I just want to reiterate and express how important it is to have those conversations with your children. So, you know, just I guess check in on them to see how they're feeling, find out what happened. It's really important just to acknowledge that you know how they're feeling, and you don't want to sort of be taking away their devices or things like that. We recommend, depending on the seriousness of what they've actually seen, to head to the support section of the Beacon app, where I wrote down, you know, those different 3 areas. So if it's really serious, inappropriate content that they've seen, to then report it to the eSafety Commissioner or the Australian Federal Police. You can actually also report the actual image within the actual app. So again, use Beacon if it's Snapchat or if it's Instagram or any of those other platforms. You can actually search the word of the app plus the word reporting, and Beacon will pull forward those step-by-step instructions to actually report it in the app. And often the app can actually jump to it and actually remove it as well. And then finally, you know, those support services as well. So if you feel that you need that extra bit of counselling to speak to someone, then we have recommended support services in that area.
That's great advice. I think it potentially links to one of the other questions we've got here. Stacey was asking actually about her son who accidentally came across some pornography online and was struggling to have the conversation. So I think that your response there probably addresses that. I'm not sure if you had anything specific to that problem that you'd like to say.
Pornography, we actually just spoke with a parent the other day about this, and she was telling us this story how her device was actually, they were using the same Apple device, so she saw what her son had saw, and so she was sharing this advice. But at that time, we actually were sitting there with Beacon, and we were using Beacon to search for these conversations that you can have specifically around pornography. And there is a couple of different articles in Beacon, and we've broken it down based on the children's ages. So depending on the age of Stacey's child, there is an article for young kids, there's an article for teens as well, but it really breaks down some conversation starters that you might want to have with your child. Really, for example, there's questions around talking about consent, respect and safety around seeing this. Also, the importance of expressing how seeing pornography online isn't often reflective of real life situations. So just recognize that it's, you know, quite exaggerated, and it's not a real life representation of that. And then also just to prevent it, again, you know, looking into those parental controls. So depending on what device or how they saw it, if it was just, you know, on Chrome or Safari or whatever the web browser is, making sure that you search for those settings to make sure those parental controls are on high and that they block out that sort of content.
Thank you, Bec. We do have questions coming through here. One of the questions here is how to manage kids. It's from Liz in New South Wales. How do you manage kids who spend too much time in their rooms and you cannot check on their screen habits? Do you have thoughts on that one? This actually, sorry, Bec, just before you answer this one, this potentially links to another question which Anthony had. Anthony was wondering about whether or not Beacon tracks the screen time in the apps that are used in the home. So that might be a linkage to this question as well.
I think the first question around kids having their devices in the room, I think this comes back to maybe that family contract that you want to get started. So, you know, this contract can be done at any age. We obviously recommend this as early as possible, even before, you know, they start getting into devices. So the contract will actually set these boundaries as well. So going through the contract, we've actually pre-filled some typical contract options for you to select, and we certainly go into this area of where devices are kept. So one of the big rules is really to just not have your child in the bedroom with their phone by themselves, and if you create a family contract around that, you can really have those open communications with your children around, you know, when they can use it and where they can use it. We have advice in the app around device-free zones. So if you go into the family section where you are creating that family contract, device-free zones is a really great way that you're not only enforcing it on your child, but actually within yourself as a parent. You can have, you know, a device-free dinner, which is a little campaign that we've got within Beacon, where, you know, no phones at dinner time, and that includes the parents. So really having those boundaries set with your children is really important. The second question around tracking screen time. Because Beacon is a cyber safety app, we were very, very cautious around any sort of privacy and data. And the one thing we can confidently say about Beacon is that we don't actually track any user information whatsoever. And this includes especially having parents track the screen time of their children. So this is really an educational tool for parents or carers, you know, pulling forward that tailored and personalized content. It's not really around tracking the time of your children. I think having those contracts in place will allow you to set those boundaries around how long children are spending online. If you search for things such as screen time in Beacon, especially around Apple devices and Android devices, I know Apple has a really great screen time parental control, and within that screen time, you go into your settings, and then it's actually under screen time. It actually allows you from a parent to actually set the time that children spend on their devices, and you can actually go all the way down to setting the time on specific games and apps. So if you know that they're on Fortnite and they're spending, you know, 4 hours straight on Fortnite, you can actually set that screen time to actually individually select either that app or the category of apps. So you can actually just select gaming apps, and that will allow you to set a restriction on all gaming apps on that device, and you can set it for 2 hours. It's really important when you do use these screen time settings that you have that open communication with your children, so they are aware that at 2 hours they will get, you know, kicked out of the app, and it doesn't cause, you know, even more tantrums and things. So some of the tips that we also recommend is to be able to, you know, tap your kid on the shoulder at the 15-minute left mark, and then go again at 5 minutes, just to let them know that it is about to kick them out. I hope that helps.
Very sound advice, especially about minimising further issues down the track and door slamming. So we have a question here from Michael in Victoria. My daughter is 15 years old and is always complaining, saying that she's the only one in her class who isn't allowed a social media account. How do you suggest I handle this?
Okay, so this one always comes up when we have workshops with parents. It's it's very, very common, and it's something that we call pester power. So you might have heard that, you may not have heard that. We do have articles in there around pester power and strategies to cope with this. I think one of the things that parents might want to try is really just talking and asking the right questions for their children. So really just things like, why is it that you actually want it? I mean, we know that kids are using social media as a way to connect to their friends, and this is actually a really positive thing. So, you know, it's fine that that's a reason why they're wanting to connect with friends, but really just to get them thinking about really why is it that they want to be on there, and listening to those questions, listening to those answers to see what they say. We have some really great conversation starters in the app. And I guess depending on what the app is, if it's, you know, Instagram or Snapchat, or I think from a parent's perspective, what you want to do is maybe, you know, just read more into what those apps are about. So be prepared to sort of know about it when you have that conversation. So know, you know, a little bit about what Snapchat is, or what TikTok is, or Instagram. And then really just have those conversation starters. And there's a really great an article around Instagram. So if you searched for, I think if you search for Instagram, you know, questions, conversation starters rather, there's an article where it's very relevant to Instagram, but it's actually relevant across all social media. And it's things such as, you know, what is the app and why do you want to use it? Is there anything bad about the app? And this is what you're actually asking your children, because then it will make them reflect and think about if there is anything bad. And really maybe just ask them, you know, is there anything on the app that that will make you worried, and see what their answers are about that. I hope that helps.
Thanks so much, Bec. We've got 2 more questions, and that'll probably take us through to time, I'd say. So one's from Justin. He was wondering about whether or not parents, this is related to the Beacon app in particular, but whether parents will actually receive alerts if there's any critical content being released that they should watch out for. So could you just explain perhaps the push messages and so forth?
Absolutely. The really great thing about Beacon is that we are able to, you know, I mentioned we have capacity to write these articles very quickly, and we're able to attach a notification with them. So when I spoke about the TikTok incident that happened last week, our turnaround time was essentially about an hour to write up an article, have it reviewed, and then set a push notification and send it out to every user. So it's really important that if you have Beacon to please allow those notifications. I think when you first download it for the first time, you have a window that pops up that says allow notifications. If you don't have that on, you won't actually receive it. If you've accidentally turned it off, you can go into your settings and then find the app and make sure your notifications are turned on. We have monthly catch-ups with all of our cyber educators. We have an open communication with our cyber educators. And I mentioned that these, they're on the ground. So they're really working with schools, with parents, with children. And we have this communication where, you know, we speak about Beacon, and we receive these insights from each of them about what the biggest concerns are, you know, with children or with parents. So when we have these conversations, we're able to quickly speak, you know, together with the e-safety commissioner and our partners, to firstly see that, you know, whether it's addressed in the app or not, and if it isn't, we will then write up these articles and we send these notifications out really timely manner. So, you know, within the day that we're able to pull together all this content. So yeah, absolutely. I think you can be really assured that you will be alerted to this information as soon as it comes out.
Excellent. And then this one will probably be our last one before we wrap things up. So this is around passwords and setting passwords. So any advice, because I know you've got a deep knowledge of technology and the internet, Bec. So any advice you have around setting passwords? This attendee says that daughters and friends have used their pets' names or birthdays. What do you suggest? Is there a right way to do this?
Yeah, so we definitely, we don't want anything that's easily guessable. There's a bit of a saying that we use within our project team about treating passwords like toothbrushes. We don't actually want to share toothbrushes with friends or anything like that. So think of it that way. We definitely don't want things that are easily guessable. So, you know, your address and actually a lot of the times passwords won't allow that. We would like to really think about things such as phrases with space bars in there, using numbers in there, using symbols in there. So thinking about, you know, 3 random things and putting that in a sentence, and, you know, being able to try and remember things like that. So definitely, yeah, definitely nothing about pets or names or first names or date of births, especially, or schools. So there is some, there's a really great article in Beacon that talks about different examples of passwords. There's also, I think, a video as well. So you can actually search for that in Beacon to get more ideas about those passwords too.
Thanks so much, Bec. I'm just conscious you've been speaking so much tonight, so we might call that one the last question. So I might do the wrap up now, if that's okay. I just wanted to thank you so much, Bec, for all of your hard work in leading the team to bring this out to market for us all, and for joining us tonight. We know that you're so busy and you've been really called upon a lot this week for this exciting launch. So we're so glad that you could spare some time with us. So we really appreciate that. We've got a little bit of a plug for the Fathering Project. So next week at our webinar, we have the lovely Dr. Tim Hawkes coming back to us. Lots of our network at the Fathering Project know Dr. Tim Hawkes already. He's going to be talking about coping strategies for parents around year 12. Such a critical time, especially with COVID. It's been a very difficult year for our sort of older youth. So this will be a really relevant webinar. So that's next week, next Thursday evening. And then we also have a podcast next week with Steve Biddulph on raising boys, which will be great. So that's out next Friday. So just a couple of things there to look out for, everyone. So we might just call that an end there, Bec. So I think you deserve a lovely glass of water now. So thank you so much for your time and for your contribution and your knowledge and advice. We've got a lot of thank yous coming through on the chat, so lots of appreciative listeners tonight, and we're all going to, if we haven't already, download the Beacon app. So thank you. I might end it there. So thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.